My name is Bryson Downs. I'm the Air Quality Specialist with ORCAA. I'm just going to be presenting ORCAA's asbestos and demolition program and kind of explain more why ORCAA regulates asbestos. Next slide, please. So asbestos consists of 6 regulated types of naturally occurring fibrous minerals. One form of asbestos, chrysotile, that makes up 95% of the asbestos found in building materials. The other 5 types of asbestos were mostly contaminants or used as filler. Because asbestos is a naturally occurring mineral, deposits of asbestos can be found all over the world in countries like Russia, Brazil, China, Canada, and in the US. Here in Washington, in Whatcom County, a landslide is periodically deposits asbestos fibers into a creek yearly based on weather. So it is a common mineral. Fibers can be extremely small and lightweight, taking hours or days to settle once airborne. Fibers can be as small as 1/10 of a micron or 1/10,000th millimeter wide. To put that into perspective, a human hair is about 70 microns wide, so it's much smaller than that. Asbestos is a known carcinogen with no safe level of exposure, and inhaling fibers can cause serious lung damage. Materials that contain more than 1% asbestos are considered asbestos-containing materials. Next slide, please. Different characteristics of asbestos made it extremely versatile, and it was used for hundreds of years. As heat resistance was used for insulation, in ducting, pipes, and fireproofing, as well as some fireproof textiles. It was used in electrical panels and wire insulation because it doesn't conduct electricity. And its chemical resistance was used for diaphragms and gaskets in the chemical manufacturing industry. It has a high tensile strength, so it was added to added as a binding agent to products like vinyl flooring, plastics, cement products, and adhesives. Next slide, please. Asbestos can be found in many different building materials. Although usage has significantly decreased, it can still be found in newer building materials. It is still used in the US today, primarily in the chemical manufacturing industry as gaskets and diaphragms. The widespread use of asbestos in consumer goods and building materials increased the public's risk of developing lung-related illnesses, even when not actively handling asbestos-containing materials. Next slide, please. Inhaling asbestos fibers can cause serious lung illnesses such as mesothelioma, asbestosis, and lung cancers. It can take up to 40 years to develop symptoms after initial exposure. The risk of developing lung illnesses increases with exposure. Symptoms can include shortness of breath, persistent cough, tight chest, swelling, and extreme fatigue. These illnesses have no known cure, and the only known treatment is a lung transplant. Due to the significant health risk asbestos poses to the public, regulations restricting its use began to be passed into law. Next slide, please. In 1971, the EPA listed asbestos as a hazardous air pollutant under the Federal Clean Air Act. And in 1973, the EPA promulgated the National Emission Standard for hazardous air pollutants and set emission standards for asbestos in manufacturing, application, renovations, and demolitions, and disposal. The asbestos NESHAP applies to commercial and public buildings, and residential buildings with 4 dwelling units or less are excluded from those regulations. Asbestos usage peaked in 1973 with over 792,000 tons imported into the US. Between 1973 and 1978, NESHAP was amended to prohibit friable or crumbly pipe insulation and spray-on materials unless certain criteria were met. In 1986, Congress passed the Asbestos Hazard Emergency Response Act, or AHERA, requiring the EPA to develop training standards for inspectors, supervisors, and workers for asbestos projects in schools. Inspectors who have had this training are called ORCAA building inspectors. 4 years later, Congress passed the Asbestos School Hazard Abatement Reauthorization Act, or ASHAR, which expanded the ORCAA training requirements to include public and commercial schools. Next slide, please. In 1989, the EPA attempted to ban most asbestos products. However, go back, please. Yes. However, the original rule was overturned in 1971 and only prohibited corrugated paper, rollboard, corrugated paper, specialty paper, flooring felt, and new commercial uses after 1989. Between 1989 and 2019, no significant changes were made to asbestos regulations in the U.S. The U.S. even continued to mine asbestos until the last closed in California in 2002. In 2019, the EPA issued a rule under the Toxic Substance Control Act requiring a review of discontinued asbestos products before being reintroduced into the market. The rule included vinyl flooring, mastic, cement board, roofing, caulking, and all other building materials. In March of this year, the EPA issued a rule to ban and phase out known ongoing uses of versatile asbestos. This rule includes diaphragms used in the chlor-alkali industry, automotive friction products such as brakes and clutches, oil-filled brake blocks, and gaskets. Even with all of the different regulations restricting the use of asbestos, it is not fully banned in the U.S., and there is still a risk that it can be found in new materials today. Next slide, please. The most well-known asbestos regulations are focused on worker safety and public health. Other agencies have asbestos regulations for transportation, consumer goods, and pharmaceutical manufacturing. ORCAA's role with asbestos regulations is focused on protecting public health from asbestos emissions during renovations, demolitions, and disposal. Next slide, please. An asbestos survey must be obtained before demolition or renovation projects to verify the presence of asbestos. Demolition projects are projects that permanently demolish or remove load supporting structural members of a structure. The survey needs to be conducted by a certified ORCAA building inspector. They have been trained to identify and sample suspect asbestos materials. For renovations, the homeowner may sample materials suspected of containing asbestos. The samples do need to be analyzed by the National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program. ORCAA does need to be notified for demolition and asbestos projects. Any project that disturbs asbestos-containing material is considered an asbestos project. Demolition projects of structures 120 square feet or more require notification at least 14 days before the project starts. Asbestos projects involving at least 48 square feet or 10 linear feet for pipes require notification at least 10 days before the project. The notification period gives ORCAA time to review the notification, address potential concerns, request more information, or conduct an inspection of the project before they start. ORCAA may waive the waiting period or the notification period for certain emergency projects if written explanation and an additional fee is included with the notification. Next slide, please. On the left is an example of ORCAA's paper version of the homeowner asbestos notification form. An online form is available on ORCAA's website. The online form combines all asbestos and demolition notification forms into one form, a bit easier. On the right is the notification fee schedule. The asbestos program is self-funded by notification fees determined yearly by the program load. Except for homeowner asbestos projects, asbestos notification fees do increase based on the size. Next slide, please. To prevent emissions from asbestos projects, only trained and certified or the owner of their own home may perform the work. Everyone working on an asbestos project must follow required asbestos handling procedures. Asbestos work must be conducted in a regulated area marked by barriers and signage to prevent others from entering the area and being exposed or tracking out asbestos. Asbestos materials need to be kept wet with a wetting agent or soapy water to prevent the fiber release. Adding soap to water decreases the surface tension and allows the water to penetrate and cover more surface area of the material. Workers must remove the asbestos material and handle waste containers with care. There must be no visible emissions of asbestos materials. Asbestos waste needs to be sealed and labeled in a leak-tight container. Industry standard for leak-tight containers is 2 layers of heavy-duty or 6 mil plastic. Labels do need to include the owner's name, the removal date, and the site address. Waste must be disposed of properly after disposal. Most local transfer stations do accept asbestos waste, but they may require at least 24 hours notice just to schedule and make sure somebody's there. And next slide, please. ORCAA offers various resources for asbestos projects, including do-it-yourself guidance for homeowners for asbestos projects, a list of asbestos service providers in ORCAA's area. The list includes asbestos contractors, HERA inspectors, accredited laboratories, and disposal sites. Online notification forms are also available. Next slide, please. To carry out ORCAA's asbestos program, inspectors review notifications and surveys. We're looking for complete notification. Was a survey included in the notification? How much and what type of asbestos materials will be removed? Inspectors provide education and assistance by discussing ORCAA's asbestos program with both the public and industry professionals. Inspectors receive and investigate complaints. Complaints may lead to inspections, a inspection of projects. Complaints can be submitted by phone, email, or online. Inspectors assist other agencies such as local building officials, Washington State Department of Labor Industries for different asbestos cases or different questions relating to asbestos. When conducting inspections, inspectors are looking for trained workers, removal procedures, any visible emissions, and the disposal of the asbestos materials. If violations are found, inspectors can enforce notices of violation or other appropriate enforcement actions. And next slide. And so far this year, from January to the end of September 2024, ORCAA has received about 394 asbestos notifications for over 342,000 square feet of asbestos material removed. We received 298 demolition notifications, responded to 54 asbestos complaints, and issued 27 notices of violation. Any questions? It's a lot of information in there.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Very good.
That was a lot.